Hey everybody, welcome. It's Andrew Owens with Golf Academy. As always, a very warm welcome. Thank you for taking your time to watch my videos. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do us a massive favour, click on that button down there somewhere and subscribe to the channel. It'd be great to have you along, and so you can check out the videos as and when I post them. So today is a little tip. I've got to be careful how I phrase this. I teach quite a lot of men and ladies who are, how can I put it nicely, maturing in years. So when I say maturing in years, they could be into the mid to late 60s, 70s, and I even teach people who are up into their 80s, which is absolutely amazing. But I think it's a fact of life. As we all get a little bit older, we tend to lose a little bit of flexibility. Things happen to our bodies, you know, we get a problem with our hips and our shoulders, and joints tend to stiffen up a bit, don't they? It's just a fact of life. So I get a lot of people coming into the academy of a certain age, and they're saying to me, I've lost all distance off the tee. How can I hit the ball further? Well, probably the simplest answer to that is to increase your club speed. I know there are lots of other reasons how you can hit the ball further, which we're going to discuss, but the number one thing is to try and get this thing moving faster as it collides with the golf ball. Now, as we get a little bit older, physically that's not always possible. If you can make improvements to the swing and get the club speed up through the help of a PGA Pro or whatever route you go down, that would be my number one priority. But there are lots of other things we can do which can reverse the loss of distance. The one thing I see when people come into my academy is the driver that they're using doesn't have enough loft on it. I'm seeing guys and girls using drivers with 9, 9.5, 10, 10.5 degrees of loft. If your club speed, let's just pick a random number here, let's say your driver club head speed is around about 80 miles an hour, then 9, 9.5, 10, 10.5 is not enough loft to get that ball up in the air. You really need to be trying something with 11, 11.5, 12, maybe even 13 degrees of loft on it. The slower that club speed becomes, the more loft you need to get that ball up in the air and keep it in the air. So if you've got an adjustable driver, which majority of clubs are these days, have a look at the settings. A lot of people buy an adjustable driver and never touch them, and are surprised when I start twisting them around and saying, hey, we can turn this 10.5 into a 12-degree driver, and all of a sudden they're hitting the ball further. So have a look at that. If your driver will not go up in loft, I suggest you maybe go to a pro shop somewhere, or somewhere you can test some clubs and try a more lofted driver. That's tip number one. Second thing to look at is the shaft that you're using. Not only the flex, but the weight of it. Again, I'm seeing a lot of people use it. I had a guy in the other day, for instance. He was 72 years old, in good shape physically, but he was using a 9-degree driver with a stiff shaft in it, and his club speed was not 80 miles an hour, and he's wondering why the ball flight was like this high, nose diving. I think the backspin rate on it was something incredible. The driver backspin rate, we were struggling to get to 1,000, so the ball, if it did get airborne, just fell out of the sky. So look at the shaft you're using. Again, this is where you're going to need to get a little bit of advice from your local pro. Have consideration to use something what we call an A-flex shaft. Years ago, companies used to call it senior flex, and realised marketing, it wasn't a smart move to call it senior. So they started calling it stuff like soft regular, that's what Ping call it, A-flex, light flex, these sorts of things. It's the shaft flex which sits between regular and ladies. Generally a little bit lighter than a regular shaft and a bit more flexible. And when we say more flexible, the kick point in the shaft is generally lowered a little bit down here. It plays a little bit softer to help the shaft kick and get some loft on it. So that's tip number two, is consider using a slightly softer shaft. Tip number three, and this is more an instructional one, there's no doubt about it that, you know, with modern launch monitors, we're starting to agree that to get the ball launched properly, we need to be hitting up into the ball, not down into it. Now, there are conspiracy theories to say that that's not true, but I genuinely believe that you've got to be hitting up into the ball. You watch the top players these days, male or female, setting up to hit driver. They will go in, ball position inside left heel, left shoulder for a right-handed golfer is tipped upwards. Left shoulder and left hip actually tipping upwards, okay, gaining a little bit of height. And as you can see here, this puts my shoulders on a really good angle. And that's going to encourage me at impact to hit up into the ball. I can hit up into the ball. The modern drivers are very good at giving you high launch and low spin. Without boring you to death with numbers, if you can be launching the ball, regardless of the loft that's on the bottom of the club here, between 12 and 14 degrees and getting somewhere around about 2,000 revolutions of spin, you're doing pretty well. Okay, that would be pretty near optimum. So there we go. Four things to consider, but three things really which you can have a look at. We're looking at loft, we're looking at shaft flex, and we're looking at, are you setting up in a position where you can hit up into the ball? The number one thing would always be club speed, but that's not always attainable. So there we go. I'll throw that one out to you. Be always interesting to get your feedback on these things. Tell me your experience about if you've managed to increase your distance, if you've been getting a little bit older and losing some power and distance and you've managed to get some of that back. Give me a shout, post your comments down below. And the other one that's just popped up into my head, which I probably should have mentioned, is the golf ball you're using. Maybe a softer compression golf ball. A lot of golf balls these days are quite high compression, sort of 80, 90, 100. Maybe using a softer compression ball like a 40 or a 50 so that we can compress the ball a bit more. There's another option. There we go. So thanks for watching. Post your comments and don't forget to give the video a little thumbs up if you think it's worthy of one of those. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll be back soon with some more what I hope will be helpful tips. Thanks again. Bye for now.